Have you ever felt the warmth of a friend's smile, only to later discover their words cut you when you weren't there? It is a disorienting moment, like watching the sun shimmer across water, only to realize it was a mirage. You replay the laugh you shared, the way they leaned in close, the comforting nods and gestures of intimacy. Yet somewhere else, perhaps at another table, perhaps in a whisper carried by someone else, that same friend was sharpening their tongue, carving your absence into a story you were never meant to hear. And suddenly the smile feels hollow, like a mask painted to perfection, hiding something corrosive beneath. Imagine a dinner table filled with chatter and wine. You speak about a small victory in your life, and the friend at your side beams with pride. Their voice rings with encouragement, but their eyes hold a flicker too fast, too shadowed to name. Later, you discover they mocked that same victory when you weren't around, reducing it to luck, to arrogance, to something unworthy. It is in that moment you realize you were not speaking to a whole person, but to two fractured selves, one that embraces you and another that resents you. You begin to wonder, which one is real and which one is the mask? Psychologists call this impression management, the constant shaping of how others perceive us. On the surface, it seems harmless. We all adjust our tone with a boss, a lover, a stranger on the street. But when it becomes chronic, when the mask hardens into the only face presented, the line between self-preservation and deception blurs. The two-faced friend is not simply lying. They are living in conflict with themselves, creating a double existence in which truth is sacrificed for belonging, envy disguised as admiration, rivalry concealed as loyalty. And when you are caught in their orbit, you become both the audience and the victim of their performance. The betrayal cuts deep because friendship is supposed to be the sanctuary where masks can fall away. When that sanctuary becomes the stage for duplicity, it leaves you questioning not only them, but yourself. Did you miss the signs? Did you confuse charm for love, flattery for loyalty? You begin to feel the loneliness of mistrust creeping in, the sense that every smile may hide a shadow you cannot see. And still, beneath the hurt, a question lingers, heavy and unresolved. Why do people wear two faces, and why do we allow ourselves to trust them? The answer is not born in adulthood. It is born much earlier, in the hidden corridors of childhood, where the first mask is shaped, polished, and worn, not to deceive, but to survive. And to understand the friend who betrays, you must first understand the child who learned the art of hiding. Have you ever wondered how someone learns to wear two faces? Rarely does it begin in adulthood. The seeds are planted far earlier, in moments so small and ordinary that they pass unnoticed, yet they shape the way a child learns to survive. Picture a boy sitting at the dinner table, fork in hand, trembling as he admits he doesn't like the food on his plate. His father's face hardens, his mother's eyes narrow, and what follows is not understanding but punishment, anger for speaking a truth that did not fit the family's script. The boy learns quickly that honesty is dangerous, that approval lies not in what is real, but in what pleases. That night, he smiles the next time he tastes bitterness, hiding his tears behind practiced lips. A mask is born, not as deception, but as protection. This is how splitting begins the creation of two selves within one fragile child. One self that speaks, performs, and obeys. Another that hides, resents, and aches in silence. Psychologists describe this fracture as attachment insecurity, the result of growing up in a world where love feels conditional. To be accepted, you must become what others want. To stay safe, you must bury what you truly feel. Over time, the child learns to move through rooms like an actor on stage, adapting their lines, their expressions, their very essence depending on the audience before them. Perhaps you remember a child like this, the one who laughed loudly with friends, but sat quietly in the corner, when parents entered the room. The one who became the good sibling when compared to a brother or sister, not out of virtue, but out of fear of losing affection. In families where siblings are pitted against each other, duplicity becomes a strategy. You smile at your rival when the parent is watching, but inside you carry envy and rage. You learn that love is not a given, it is currency, and masks are the coins you spend to earn it. Neuroscience tells us that a child's brain is shaped by these repeated experiences. When honesty is met with threat, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, remembers, embedding caution deep into the nervous system. And so the child becomes hyper-aware, scanning faces, anticipating shifts in mood, calculating which version of themselves is safest to reveal. Authenticity becomes a luxury they cannot afford. But what begins as survival calcifies into identity. The child who once wore a mask only at home begins to wear it everywhere. School, friendships, even in moments of joy, there is always a part of them held back, always a shadow self waiting behind the curtain. The mask is no longer temporary armor. It becomes the only face they know how to show. And when that child grows up, they do not suddenly lay down the mask. They carry it into adulthood, into every relationship and every friendship, unaware that the armor which once protected them now quietly poisons their ability to love honestly. This is how the seeds of splitting take root, shaping the two-faced friend long before they ever learn your name. Have you noticed how some people seem to glide effortlessly between worlds, wearing one face for you and another the moment you turn away? The mask that began in childhood does not vanish with age. It only becomes more polished, more convincing, more dangerous. What once was a child's shield against punishment transforms into an adult's weapon of social survival. The two-faced friend you encounter in adulthood is not a stranger to deception. They are a master of it, rehearsed since the earliest memories of needing to smile while hiding their tears. Imagine a colleague who applauds your promotion with radiant sincerity, even hugging you in congratulations. For a moment, you believe them, but later, you learn they whispered to others that you didn't deserve it, that luck or favoritism carried you further than talent. The same voice that raised a toast in your honor poured quiet poison when you weren't there to defend yourself. This is the adult mask at work, a coin gleaming with approval on one side, corroded with resentment on the other. Psychologists call this impression management, a strategy where the self bends to every situation, ensuring belonging through charm and validation. To the two-faced adult, identity is not stable. It is negotiable, shaped by the eyes that watch. Neuroscience shows us that the social brain is wired to crave acceptance. And when early attachment taught someone that love was conditional, they learned to perform endlessly. One mask for intimacy, another for rivalry, and another still for survival. The mask becomes less a choice and more a reflex, so deeply ingrained that even they may not realize when they are shifting. You notice it at gatherings. One friend who mirrors the personality of whoever speaks the loudest, who praises you when you're near, but joins the laughter when your flaws are joked about in your absence. A shadow cast in two directions, unable to stay whole. Their laughter feels genuine, but so does their betrayal. It leaves you questioning not only their loyalty, but your own perception. Were you blind to their duplicity? Or did you simply choose to believe the polished side of the coin? And yet, beneath this performance lies a deeper truth. The mask is not random, nor is it purely malicious. It follows a map etched into the psyche long ago, a structure of adaptation designed to keep love within reach while silencing the terror of rejection. The two-faced friend is not merely choosing to deceive, they are repeating the only survival strategy they have ever known. But survival carries its own shadow, and in time, the cost of duplicity reveals itself not only in broken trust, but in the hollowness of never being truly seen. Which leads to the question, why does the mind cling so desperately to this double existence, even when it corrodes intimacy? The answer lies in psychology itself. where duplicity is less a flaw of character and more a learned design etched into the nervous system. Why does duplicity, as corrosive as it is, so often feel like the safer path? To understand the two-faced friend, you must first understand the architecture of the human mind, the way it bends toward survival, even if survival means becoming fragmented. Attachment theory teaches us that when a child grows up, unsure whether love will be given freely or withdrawn as punishment, the nervous system wires itself for vigilance. Your brain, even as a child, scans constantly for cues. Was that smile genuine? Was that silence dangerous? In homes where truth was punished or vulnerability ridiculed, the lesson learned was not honesty but performance. The child carried that lesson forward into adulthood, where duplicity becomes less a choice and more a reflex. Neuroscience confirms this. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, flares at the faintest hint of rejection. To quiet it, the self bends, shapeshifts, and wears whichever mask guarantees acceptance in the moment. Social psychology reveals another layer. Consider Solomon Ash's famous conformity experiments, where people agreed with false answers just to avoid standing out. That need to belong runs so deep that even your perception of truth can be distorted by the pull of the group. For the two-faced friend, this isn't an occasional compromise, it is a way of life. They lean toward whichever face will secure belonging, even if it means betraying another. Their duplicity is less about malice than about fear. Fear of exclusion, fear of insignificance, fear of being left outside the circle of warmth. But duplicity is not only born from fear. Sometimes it is sharpened into strategy. Studies on the dark triad of personality narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, show how charm, deceit, and calculated betrayal can be wielded to gain power. A friend who flatters you while resenting you is, in this light, not just surviving but maneuvering, using impression management to climb social hierarchies. They are like an actor rehearsing lines, ensuring each audience believes in a different version of them. You feel special in their presence because they know how to mirror your light, even while secretly feeding their shadow. And yet, perhaps the most haunting part is not them, but you. Neuroscience shows that the brain rewards flattery, even when it is insincere. Compliments release dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and trust, making you less likely to notice red flags. You overlook the inconsistencies, excuse the small betrayals, because your body craves the sweetness of being admired. In this way, duplicity survives not only because it is practiced, but because it is welcomed. But what begins as a survival reflex or a social strategy does not remain harmless. The mask becomes heavier, the shadow darker, the betrayal sharper. Duplicity corrodes trust, poisons intimacy, and leaves scars that ripple far beyond the moment of deception. And this is where the story deepens, because every mask eventually cracks, and what spills out is not safety but destruction, the dark side of duplicity that no one escapes untouched. What cuts deeper than a stranger's cruelty is the betrayal of someone who once called you friend. An enemy's blade you can see coming, but the wound delivered by a friend arrives disguised as a gift. Their smile is warm, their touch reassuring, their words filled with loyalty, yet beneath that surface, sharpened edges wait. The two-faced friend is both mirror and knife, reflecting closeness while slicing through the very bonds they pretend to cherish. Picture yourself confiding in someone, handing over a fragile piece of your heart in the form of a secret, a fear, or a dream. You believe it is safe in their hands, only to later hear your own words twisted, repeated, and used against you in another room. The moment is devastating not only because you were betrayed, but because the betrayal wore the mask of intimacy. What you trusted most, the sanctuary of closeness, was weaponized into something that tore you apart. It leaves you haunted, not just by what they did, but by the realization that you never truly saw who they were. Psychologists note that betrayal by a friend triggers a deeper psychological rupture than betrayal by an enemy. Enemies live outside your circle of trust, but friends reside inside it, entwined with your self-concept and sense of safety. Neuroscience reveals that when trust is violated by someone close, the brain processes it as both social pain and physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex, the same region activated when you're physically wounded, lights up when you're betrayed. Your body aches as though cut, your nervous system recoils as though burned. The monster is not outside it, is beside you at the table, laughing as though nothing happened. The two-faced friend thrives in this shadowed space between loyalty and envy, between admiration and resentment. They may not even fully understand the destruction they cause, because duplicity has long since become reflex. Yet the effect is the same. You begin to doubt your own perception. Did you mishear? Did you misunderstand? Gaslit by their duality, you question your instincts, eroding your confidence and leaving you stranded in a fog of mistrust. Betrayal is rarely a clean break. It seeps into your memory, staining the moments that once felt safe. You replay their laughter, their words, their eyes, searching for the crack you should have noticed. But duplicity is not a simple lie. It is an ongoing performance that corrodes slowly, like poison dropped into a well, invisible until the water tastes bitter. And so the two-faced friend leaves behind not just broken trust, but a hollowing absence, a loneliness, sharpened by the knowledge that intimacy itself can turn toxic. Yet, this darkness does not live in them alone. Entire cultures, entire societies, often reward this duplicity, applauding masks while punishing honesty, which forces a deeper question. What happens when the shadow is not only within the individual, but woven into the world we all share? Have you noticed how the world seems to quietly reward masks more than it rewards honesty? From the first moments you step into a classroom, a workplace, or even a dinner party, you are taught a subtle lesson. Charm often carries you further than truth. A child who learns to say the right thing is praised, while the one who speaks with raw sincerity is told to soften their words. By the time you are grown, you understand the unspoken rule. Society admires the polished face, even if it hides a shadow underneath. Think of the workplace. Diplomacy, they call it, though sometimes it is just dishonesty wrapped in professional tone. The colleague who flatters a superior wins opportunities not by merit, but by performance. The one who dares to confront injustice risks being labelled difficult. And so people learn that duplicity is not a flaw, but a strategy, a way to survive in hierarchies where silence is rewarded and confrontation punished. What began as a childhood mask to avoid punishment becomes a social tool, sharpened into adulthood. In friendships, the same current runs quietly. Society reveres the image of the nice friend and the loyal companion, yet beneath this veneer, gossip circulates like blood through hidden veins. You are told that to belong, you must participate, that to stay silent is to risk being left outside. And so the whisper becomes a ritual, a bond created at someone else's expense. The culture itself sanctions duplicity, disguising it as intimacy. The mask is not only permitted, it is applauded. Psychologists note that humans are wired for social cohesion, but culture often twists this instinct into performance. Neuroscience shows that social approval activates the brain's reward circuits, much like addictive substances. The applause of charm, the nod of acceptance, the smile of belonging, these become intoxicating. Integrity, which demands risk and vulnerability, cannot compete with the instant pleasure of conformity. And so duplicity spreads, not as an individual failing, but as a collective habit, a survival tactic endorsed by the very structures meant to bind us together. But every reward carries a hidden cost. When society exalts the mask, it condemns the soul to loneliness. If your worth is built on performance, then you are never truly known. You may be celebrated for the face you show, but your inner self remains unseen, exiled in silence. The more you are praised for duplicity, the further you drift from authenticity, until one day you realize that no one, not even you, knows who you really are. And this is the poisoned fruit of cultural conditioning, the erosion of emotional health, the quiet withering of connection. A garden watered with deception may bloom for a season, but its roots will rot in time. Which leads us to the haunting truth beneath all the masks and performances. What toll does this duplicity take on the human heart? What lingers after betrayal is not just anger, it is the loneliness that comes when trust collapses beneath your feet. When someone you once called a friend reveals two faces, you feel a fracture that cuts through the core of your being. You begin to look at every smile with suspicion, every compliment with unease, wondering if affection is genuine or just another mask waiting to slip. The wound does not heal quickly because it does not only touch the moment it poisons memory itself. Even the laughter you once shared feels altered, rewritten by the shadow of deceit. You know the toll in your body as well as your mind. The phone buzzes with messages, a familiar name glowing across the screen, yet your chest tightens instead of lifting. Their words seem warm, but your intuition hears the hollowness beneath. At night, you replay conversations like broken reels, straining to catch the moment where performance began and authenticity ended. The mind, once open to connection, begins to coil inward. Anxiety grows louder, loneliness seeps in, not just from the absence of that friend, but from the loss of faith in people themselves. If betrayal is possible here, is it not possible everywhere? Psychologists describe betrayal trauma as a wound to the nervous system itself. Trust is the scaffolding of human attachment, and when it collapses, the brain enters survival mode. Cortisol rises, sleep falters, vigilance sharpens. You walk through the world scanning for danger, but the danger is not a stranger, it is the familiar. This is why betrayal corrodes deeper than rejection. It reconfigures your entire map of safety. And yet, the pain is not reserved for the betrayed alone. The two-faced person also pays a price, though it hides behind the mask they refuse to drop. They live in a constant state of performance, alienated from their true self. Every lie told is another brick in a wall that isolates them. Every act of duplicity, a reminder that they cannot risk being fully seen. Neuroscience suggests that deception elevates stress markers in the body, heart rate, blood pressure, cortisol. Behind the polished smile lies a nervous system, trembling, trapped in fear of exposure. In seeking belonging through duplicity, they exile themselves from the very intimacy they crave. The consequence for both is the same: loneliness. For the betrayed, a loneliness born of mistrust. For the betrayer, a loneliness born of falsehood. Both sides are haunted, one by the question, "How could you?" and the other by the echo, "What if they find out?" It is a silence that devours connection, leaving only isolation where love once grew. And yet, even in this bleakness, the story is not finished. Because the cure is not in silencing the mask or pretending it never existed. The path forward begins when the mask is lifted, when the hidden face is finally brought into the light. Only then can the garden, long starved of honesty, begin to grow again. How do you begin to heal when trust has been fractured? When the face you once leaned on revealed itself to be only a mask? The instinct is to harden, to build walls so thick that no betrayal can slip through again. But a life lived behind barricades is not freedom, it is another kind of prison. The answer is not to shut yourself off from others, but to learn how to see clearly, to walk through the world with both compassion and discernment, recognizing the masks without needing to wear one yourself. You start by learning to trust actions over words. The two-faced friend thrives on charm, but words without alignment are empty vessels. When you pay attention not just to what someone says, but to the consistency of how they move through time, how they show up when it is inconvenient, how they hold your truth when it is heavy, you begin to see through the performance. Boundaries, too, become an act of love rather than suspicion. To say, "This far," and no further, is not cruelty, but clarity. It is a way of teaching others how to treat you, while protecting the quiet garden of your own soul from being trampled. Psychology speaks here of shadow integration, the practice of confronting the parts of yourself you would rather ignore. Because if you do not face your own shadow, you will either project it onto others or allow theirs to entangle with yours. When you know your own hunger for approval, your own fear of abandonment, you are less likely to fall for the flattery that masks betrayal. Self-worth beyond validation is the deepest armor, for no mask can seduce you when you already know your value without it. Neuroscience reminds us that the brain can rewire through repetition and mindfulness. If betrayal once trained your nervous system into hypervigilance, healing can slowly teach it safety again. Small acts of honesty, speaking your truth, even when your voice shakes, standing firm in boundaries, even when others resist, reshape the pathways of fear into pathways of strength. Healing is not the removal of risk, but the courage to walk forward, knowing that intimacy, though fragile, is still worth it. And so clarity becomes your compass. Not cynicism, not bitterness, but the clear-eyed awareness that masks exist, that shadows live in every human heart, and that trust must be earned, not assumed. You do not need to become two-faced yourself to survive in a world that rewards duplicity. You only need to live so authentically that others' masks cannot blind you, and your own need for one dissolves. This journey, difficult as it is, leads to something larger than healing from a single betrayal. It points toward a deeper truth about friendship, intimacy, and the human soul. A truth that lingers long after the mask is set aside, waiting to be spoken in the final reflection. What is friendship, if not a mirror? You look into another's eyes and hope to see yourself reflected, your laughter, your flaws, your unspoken fears, held with tenderness rather than judgment. But what happens when the mirror is cracked? When the reflection smiles at you in the light, but whispers against you in the dark? In those moments of fracture, you are not only seeing them, you are forced to see yourself. Your hunger for belonging, your blindness to charm, your willingness to believe in a mask because it felt easier than facing the shadow beneath it. There is a haunting lesson in the two-faced friend. Their betrayal is not just about them, it is also about you. About the places in your soul that still ache for validation. About the moments where you mistook flattery for loyalty. About the shadow within you that longs to be accepted no matter the cost. You realize then that duplicity, as much as it wounds you, is also a teacher. It teaches you where you are still unguarded, where you still confuse attention for love, and where you still carry the child's fear of being abandoned. Psychologists often remind us that relationships are laboratories of the self. Every connection is an experiment, every betrayal a data point, every act of love a hypothesis tested against the uncertainty of human nature. Neuroscience tells us that your brain is wired to seek resonance, to find safety in the presence of another. But when that resonance is shattered, it forces your nervous system to reorient, to ask, "Who am I?" without their reflection. And perhaps that is the question betrayal was always meant to surface. The mask your friend wore was never truly about you. It was about their own shadow, their own fear of being seen. But in witnessing it, you are given a choice. You can harden into cynicism, concluding that all connections are false, or you can step closer to truth, realizing that only in the absence of masks can friendship breathe. The two-faced friend teaches you, painfully but unmistakably, that masks protect no one. They only delay the loneliness of being unseen. And so, you come to understand that true friendship begins where the mask ends. It begins in the fragile courage of honesty, in the trembling act of being seen without disguise. It begins when you risk the raw face of your soul, knowing it may be rejected, but trusting that somewhere, someone will meet you without shadow, without performance, without a knife hidden behind the smile. The mirror of friendship will always show more than you expect. Sometimes it reveals beauty, sometimes betrayal, sometimes the face of your own shadow staring back. But if you are willing to face that reflection, without turning away, then the cracks themselves can become a kind of light, reminding you that authenticity, though rare, is the only ground on which love can stand. And it is there, in that fragile light, that friendship finally becomes real,